are ready to get started. And thanks to you guys, we've been doing this now for 92 months. So that's pretty incredible. Appreciate y'all. So we start off our evening with an invocation and the pledge. And so would you all stand? And Jim Robertson's going to lead us in those.
Let's pray. Let's pray.
He's yellow, John.
Am I on? No, sorry. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're grateful, Father, for this country and for the ability to have this kind of event, Father. We just pray, have your blessing on it, Father. And for this food that we're about to receive, bless that to our body, Father. Maybe watch over this, open our ears, and we just pray all these things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I have a really good treat, Jeff. I have a really good treat for all of you this evening. Alessandra is going to sing for us, and so I think you're going to enjoy this, and so come on up here. It is the national anthem, so you may want to keep standing. It's not the NFL here.
The national anthem is increasingly becoming a divisive occurrence. I think it's a beautiful thing that
She's
we all
blue.
be here together, all under one nation, representing
Her mic is blue.
one flag, representing one nation.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Thank you so much. That was a real treat for all of us. That was great. Okay, get everybody organized again here. So we're going to go through a lot of this quickly because I know you're here to hear Matt and not me. But what I do want to say is in my lifetime, I can't remember a time when a president was facing so many simultaneous challenges. We have international threats, we have natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, fires, and a devastating national tragedy. So please, all of you, pray for our country and for our president. We do have, these things that we want to keep up with a little bit. And to me, when you look at this, what's happening with North Korea, really this threat is only going to grow as large as China is going to allow it to grow. They have the most at stake. North Korea is sort of their puppet thing, and so our U.S. trade restrictions could really cause China's economy to contract significantly, putting Xi Jinping's regime at risk. And I'm getting readjusted here. Readjust. Readjust. So, if you remember the campaign with Trump, he was talking about China stealing American jobs, stealing our intellectual property, devaluating currencies, destroying entire industries. And, that really, we were figuring we were going to have one heck of a trade war with China. And that's not happened. What we have done are some sanctions on North Korea, but we haven't slapped those across-the-board tariffs on China, on Chinese goods and things that way. That's really been delayed. We thought that aluminum and steel and things that way were really going to be smacked, and that didn't happen. And so rather than trade, the approach has really been to enlist China's president's help in diffusing the crisis in North Korea. So far, it's sort of working, and so we're just going to have to see how this is going to work. Because we do need to understand that Kim Jong-un is a little bit of a loose cannon, and maybe China can't keep him under control, but right now it seems to be that process is working fairly well. So on the budget, what's happening there is we're wanting to get the Senate and the House to both pass budgets so then we can use reconciliation. And so reconciliation, both the House and Senate need to pass a budget resolution for 2018 that spells out the impact that tax changes would have. And then once they do that, and have a bill that can really demonstrate that, they can use reconciliation for the taxes. So the budget's extremely, extremely important. So the House passed its budget, and its budget says that tax cuts should be offset by spending cuts. Any increases in that way, it should should balance. So the tax code, cuts in spending, and things that way are not really built in to their budget as far as giving any leeway for loss of revenue in what the budget's going to do. The Senate Budget Committee has approved a different measure last Thursday afternoon, and it says that the tax breaks could cost up to $1.5 trillion over 10 years. So there'll be a process to try to figure out how to get these things to merge slightly. Got two chairs up here, one over here, things that way. So just make yourselves at home and come on up. So the Senate is out of session. Have any of you noticed how little these darn bodies work? It's pretty crazy. So they're out of session until the 16th. And if the budget is the first item taken up when it returns, passage on the floor is going to take some time because the Senate's always allowed to do multiple amendments and things that way. And once they pass it, then they do a conference committee. So if we were very lucky, you could see something done maybe by Halloween. But the way that this whole thing's working with this establishment global clique, there's really seems to just be a war, and the purpose really seems to let nothing get done. So shame on both parties. It's not good. So the first thing they need to do is pass the budget. They need to release a tax bill. That tax bill needs to pass in the House and the Senate. The bill goes back to the House. They vote on the Senate version or send it back to a conference committee. And I truly don't think you're going to see any tax reform. I think you may see some tax cuts at the most. and just a very watered down process of what the American people voted for. And again, we've got to get after our representatives and our senators and things that way and just say, hey, you need to stop listening to your leadership and start listening to the American people. So DACA, I thought, was really pretty darn clever. The whole thing's going to be touchy, but Trump really just tossed it back to legislation where it should have been. It was an unconstitutional executive order. And so I thought it was pretty darn clever what he did. The Democrats are really wanting amnesty for all and a pathway to citizenship for illegals. They really see no need to enforce any present immigration laws. They don't see any need to enhance border security. And you know, if we do anything to fix this at this point and don't fix those things, you're just going to end up with the same problem another 10 years down the road of now what are we going to do with all these people who are here illegally. This is another issue that I think you're seeing the Republicans be wishy-washy, the same they were on health care. Before the election, of course, every Republican ran on the idea that they wanted to repeal and replace, and they'd do this and they'd do that, and they stood on soapboxes and they shouted from the, from the hilltops. They said the same thing on immigration. They were going to be strict on immigration. They were going to do this. They were going to do that. They weren't going to allow this to continue. And now they don't want to be seen as being hard on these people, and you don't want to, they just don't want to seem unsympathetic, and so they're just folding like crazy. A lot of the time we hear about how many of these wonderful illegal children, the DACA children, serve in the military. That's the number, just a little over 1/10 of 1%. That's all. And so when you're hearing the news telling you that there are all these wonderful people that are serving in the military, not true. But DACA is a very emotional issue. I think Trump's using it as a bargaining chip, get the taxes out of the way and then we'll work on DACA. We'll see how that works. On September 25th, Tillis of North Carolina and Lankford of Oklahoma introduced what they called the Succeed Act. Now, all these acts are acronyms for things, right? Solution for undocumented children through careers, employment, education, and defending our nation. I think they probably spend most of the time thinking up names. But do look it up. Look up Succeed Act and look at the particulars. I like it. It creates a 15-year process that would allow young undocumented immigrants to earn the ability to be protected from deportation, allow them to work legally in the United States, they could travel outside the country, and they could become lawful permanent residents, not citizens. And I really feel that is extremely important. I do not feel there should be a pathway to citizenship for anybody that's come into the country illegally, even if they were 2 months old. And so there's no pathway for citizenship in this. And I think citizenship should be reserved for those who have entered the country legally. So look up the Succeed Act. I like it. It'll be mangled, but it's starting off pretty well. So what else is happening? They're going to have to figure out how to fund the government in December, because that was the deal Trump made with the Democrats to push that off. Are they going to raise the debt ceiling or not? We'll have to see. We've got billions that have to be approved for disaster relief, and then we have that March deadline for DACA. So there's a lot to do, and from the performance that we've seen for the last 9-10 months, I don't think we should be expecting too very much. In statewide, I didn't go into a lot, but honestly, if you missed last month's panel on the Hurst decision, I urge you to go to that YouTube station of ours and watch it, because Hurst is so much more than just water. It's about property rights, it's about our homes, our livelihoods, and our economy. The Building Industry Association of Washington did a study, and what it shows is that $6.9 billion will be lost in economic activity each year in Washington, each year, and predominantly in rural communities. And that means the communities mostly east of the Cascades. $3.7 billion lost property values impacted by Hurst. So you may say, well, I don't live in a rural area, I live in the city, that's okay. But if you stop to think, let's just look at Spokane County and look at the amount of property that is going to be devalued because of this lack of ability to drill wells and have water, well, where are they going to get the revenue? Because these people with the no wells aren't going to be paying their full property taxes. Let me tell you, as far as I'm concerned, land that doesn't have water is worth nothing. And so nothing, on nothing is nothing, so where are you going to make up those property taxes? It's all of you people that live in the suburbs and that kind of thing, so don't think. So Spokane County is going to have a big impact there. $346 million in property taxes are shifted to other properties in Washington due to the decision. It's going to be more than $346 million. $392.7 million in lost taxes to state and local governments annually. $452.3 million in lost rural employee wages due to impacts of Hurst annually. Remember, our budget's always a biannual one, and yet these numbers are annual, and you multiply them by two and see how they're impacting the budget. It's pretty crazy. And $4.59 billion will be lost in the construction industry, again, annually. So I really want you to thank our senators and legislators for holding strong on that no Hurst fix, no capital budget. And we need to keep doing that. And we need to get this petition going, guys. And there's petitions on the back table. Those aren't for you to just sign tonight. Those are for you to take home with you, visit with your neighbors, get to know your neighbors, talk to them. It's really a fun thing to do. And get these things filled out. We need them filled out. So there's a stack of them. I want you to take 2, 3, 4, 5, but get them done, because it's not gonna happen unless we all work with it. Now, if we move on to our local issues, again, like I said, I didn't do a whole lot in this. I see Rob Chase is here, so he may be able to update us a little bit with what's going on with Spokane County. We touched on the budget last month. I'm not sure if they did anything but talk this month. And as you all know, Governor Inslee named Mary Cooney to fill the commissioner position left vacant by Shelley O'Quinn. She will need to run for that position in the election in 2018, along with forgetful Al French, who doesn't remember what he said in this room. How many of you were here when he said that? What he said was, because we had a bunch of PCOs here, he gave his little spiel, and then he went and sat down. He sat down right about where Brian is, and he was asked questions. And the PCOs asked him, when are you going to start appointing who the PCO's name is number one, instead of these other people that keep getting voted out of office after they've run their appointment process. And I'm going, he shouldn't have said that, because what he said absolutely was, from now on, I'm going to stop trying to second guess the PCOs. I am going to go with their number one pick. And of course, he didn't like this pick. He did really well up until then, but he didn't like this one. And so then he had to use his wiggle room. And I would have respected him if he had stood up and said, hey, I know I said it, but I'm not going to do it this time. But instead, he couldn't do that, and he had to use, well, I'm going to give deference, and I'm going to do this and that, which was a bunch of bully. So he's very forgetful. John Garisco has said that if he's not appointed, he's going to challenge. So I think 2018 is going to be a pretty interesting election here in Spokane County. City of Spokane, we talked about this last month. Even though the City Council's policy advisor and the hearings examiner reviewed this proposition and indicated that it was illegal and unconstitutional, and it was going to cost the city a whole ton of money if they implemented it, they went ahead and stuck it on the ballot. And so I hope the citizens are smart enough to vote no on Proposition 2 And if they don't vote no, all they're going to be doing is wasting taxpayer dollars trying to defend something that the city council was told wasn't legal, wasn't constitutional in the first place. That city council absolutely has to be changed. I think we're fairly clear here with who we're supporting. We've ignored the city of Spokane far too long, far too long. We've also ignored the 3rd District far too long, and we need to change those dynamics. So that brings me to the subject of Tim Benn. I think Tim has a heck of a good chance this election of winning his position. His opponent is Kate Burke, and she's being aggressively supported by the Democratic Party and Lisa Brown. Now, Lisa Brown is the former state senator and the WSU chancellor, and she's the present Democratic candidate opposing Kathy McMorris Rogers. She's been heading a doorbelling effort for Kate, and they have a team of over 50 people flooding the district that Tim is running in. So we need you. This weekend, we have 4 precincts targeted, and we need as many of you as possible to help with doorbelling and distributing literature. I've made sign-in sheets. I'm going to pass them around. If you don't have a pen, there's pens on the table. If you'd pass to your side of the room, you pass to your side of the room and up. I want your guys' feet on the ground, and bring your friends. But we need to be doorbelling those 4 precincts. We need to be distributing literature, and people are passing this around, so I think they need pens. But preferably give me your cell number, so that way text will work also. John and I will be helping Shannon with this, Tim's wife. And the reason Shannon I'm saying is Tim's here. He's going to talk to you for just a second. But he has a badly sprained ankle, and his ability to walk precincts is pretty darn limited. So Tim, can you just come up here and say a few words? And I'll be calling all the PCOs, not just in the 3rd, but anybody else that I know. But I really need help this weekend. We'll be sort of meeting in the Chief Gary Park area, 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and let's just flood the area. Outdo Lisa Brown.
Let's do it. Yeah, I actually think I have some pizza that'll be delivered to the doorbelling effort, so you'll be fed. We really got to work on this. We do not need Seattle moving in next door to the valley, so even if you live in the valley, what happens in Spokane doesn't stay in Spokane. My opponent's raised over $23,000 out of Seattle for her city council campaign, which actually is a record for money raised in the 1st District. So we need to get out there. We need to get the word out. My wife and I went out last weekend. We hit 600 doors. The second day I didn't go out. She got a little more help because the first day I sprained my ankle, but it's a miraculous. I'm walking around on it. It's great. It was hugely swollen. Yeah. Actually, it was a bad sidewalk, but we just keep planting those trees right next to the sidewalk because we need urban design so that we can destroy our sidewalks every 20 years. So we have a lot of interesting things happening in Spokane. A lot of things like she had brought up with the trains and ways that we can get sued. Spokane has multiple lawsuits going. Our Ombudsman Commission is about to fall apart again, and that's because of the bad leadership that's picking people on those committees. Ben Stuckert, if he gets his way, he's bringing forward an ordinance probably in the next month or 2. It'll be voted on after the election, like many other things on their agenda will be voted on after election, if you know how that works. And this ordinance would change campaign finance law, which also is unconstitutional. We can't have our own campaign and finance law. The Supreme Court ruled on that. But what it would do is it would allow basically left donors to donate and would prohibit certain small businesses from donating. So those are the toxic things happening that we need to put to an end. And it's only been going on for just a couple of years in the city of Spokane, and it can change, and we can win in District 1. I will be Mike Fagan's seatmate, so the district elected Mike Fagan. They can elect Tim Benn, and we can become the fighters, the dynamic duo in the city of Spokane.
Thanks, Tim.
Not go out and doorbell with us this weekend. Tim has envelopes. He needs money badly. Like he said, Kate has raised $23,000. He has mailers that are ready to go if he has the funds for it. He has a lot of things ready. And so if you can't walk the streets, at least contribute some money. I'm being sort of pushy tonight, but darn it, you know, I really feel we have a chance, a real chance of winning this seat, and we would if everybody had pitched together. So in the Valley, again, we have an election coming up. Be prepared, learn about the elections in your part of the county. We always talk about building a firewall between Spokane City and Spokane Valley, and the present council has done that. They need to be retained. And this is, again, there's doorbelling efforts going on there. There are phone banks, things that way you guys can help. And this is a time of year where you need to be getting up off your chair and helping with these situations. Upcoming events, got a lot of them, so some of you probably found a piece of paper on your tables, and I have a mistake on one of them, so I'll point it out when we get there. Again, you'll need a pen for that one. So we've got the Ponderosa Women tomorrow, so you've got that one there. She's known as, Sharon Hannock's her speaker. She's known as the research mom, and she really goes into education a whole lot. Then tomorrow is probably it's a fundraiser, but it's probably one of the classiest events that we have in Spokane County. And it's the Freedom Fundraiser, Matt calls it, because he gives a lot of awards out and things that way too. He has great speakers, and it's held up at Trezzy Farm in Green Bluff. How many of you have been up to Trezzy's Farm? I mean, it's a delightful place. They are a catering company as well as a winery, and they put on a dinner for this event that is well worth going to. You know, since his election, Representative Shea has been committed to fulfilling his promise to the voters of defending liberty, standing up to the people against overreaching government, and upholding the Constitution. He votes the right way. He works across the aisle, and he gets things accomplished. So this is a great event. There's good food, good company, and Matt, is there still room?
Yes, there is.
Okay, cool. I had people asking me tonight, was there room and can they pay at the door?
Yes, there's always room.
Always room. Okay, great. So that takes care of Thursday, and now you have Friday morning, and Rob does these Friday morning breakfasts. And Hatham, would you come up and just tell us a little bit about this next event? And it is a rally that's being held on Friday at Center Place. And I need a microphone. There are flyers on the back for this.
Yeah, so...
Tell us who you are.
So my name is Hatham. I founded recently an online conservative news organization called the Uncut Report. And I'm a campus coordinator with a group called Students for Liberty. They're pro-free market, small government with operations all across 50 states and also internationally. And we're working on organizing a rally this Friday because, you know, tax reform and the debate over taxes has been in the national spotlight recently. And we want to call for less taxes, more liberty, to show that the people on our side of the state, we have a voice, and we are going to be active and make sure that our voice is heard, but also give a voice to rural America as a whole to show that high taxes have taken away manufacturing jobs abroad. They are hurting working families, and we're able to make a stand for our side of the state and also the nation as a whole, and begin to show that we're able to get active and to hold politicians accountable for their campaign promises.
Great.
And the brochures has the information for everything. It's going to be from 7 to 8 on Friday, October 13th. And it's going to be at the Center Place in Spokane Valley. We have Matt, he's going to be speaking. We have Councilman Ed Pace and Mike Munch are going to be speaking. And then there's also more information. We have the Facebook link there, and we'll keep you posted for new speakers, schedule, and all that kind of stuff.
Great. Thank you. We'll trade there. So it's important that we let the east side of the state be recognized, and you can do that by coming out to events like this. So that again is just what I was talking about, wasn't it? Interesting. Okay, so there we go, and again it's on your sheets of paper. Now Rob brought me this one and I didn't know about it, and this is where I found out that I have a wrong date. October 18th is a Wednesday, October 19th is Thursday, and I have a Thursday, October 18th on your slip of paper, so that'll be the one you're changing. But Chris Ann Hall is coming to Coeur d'Alene on Wednesday, October 18th, and she'll be talking about the Fourth Amendment. The language of the Fourth Amendment seems clear, so how does the government keep violating the people's rights? If we do not understand what our rights are and why we have them, we cannot defend them. In this review of the Fourth Amendment, Chris Ann will teach the history that established the firm understanding in the minds of our framers that the people's right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. So Chris Ann is an attorney. She's a former prosecutor. She travels the country teaching the Constitution and the history that gave us our founding documents. And she just really does connect the dots like nobody else does. Very, very knowledgeable lady, great speaker, and well worth attending. So she will be, if this is one you're interested in, it's Coeur d'Alene, 6848 North Government Way. So I'll leave this around so you guys can look at it. And then this next one is Pints and Politics. And that's on Tuesday, October 17th at the Overbluff Cellars at the Washington Cracker Company. Now this is a candidate forum being put on by the Spokesman Review. What do we think of the Spokesman Review in this room? Do you think Tim Benn needs some support at this forum? Okay. We need to be there. We need to be there so he sees that he has support. We need to be there to give him confidence. And anyway, like they say, it's pints and politics. So it's an open bar. Might as well have a good time. And so that's one that I think would be well worth your while to show up at and support Tim. And then this is the one I messed up on your little piece of paper. As you can see, it is Thursday, October 19th, not Thursday the 18th. And this is an event that the JBS is bringing in Tom DeWeese. Tom is the founder and president of the American Policy Center. He's going to be talking about what we all know is Agenda 21, but now they sort of call it Agenda 30, so that's why the names change, but the threat is real, and it's talking about that Agenda 21 situation. And, you know, I'm looking back at all the years JBS has put on these events. Ticket cost $5, the same as it was I don't know how many years ago. So they haven't figured out inflation yet. So it's a good deal. Is anyone here with tickets tonight? No. So just show up, pay at the door, and you can give them 10. That's. Oh, you have tickets? Will they be available at the door? Okay. Door or reserve at the, okay. So anyway, that's what that's all about. And finally, our Citizens Alliance for Property Rights. Mike Fagan's going to be talking about what lies ahead for Spokane. That's Thursday, October 26th. So if you guys don't have a life, you can go to all of these events and keep very busy. It's pretty crazy. This is where we come to open mic. We have a full evening scheduled, so if you have something of importance, please come up. Do keep it short because I brought the hook with me. And if you have your hand up, that means you should be standing right here if you want to talk. Do you want to talk? Well, then up here. We can't wait. Hustle, hustle.
Okay, my recent quest for a county commissioner, I want to thank all the people in this room who got behind me and helped me out and took time with their Saturday to come and support me or wrote letters on my behalf. So I really appreciate that. You know, I did what I could. I did the best I could, but you can't control the uncontrollable sometimes. And I thought I had a good chance because I was here in this room 3 years ago when Al said, from now on, I will vote for whoever comes in first place. And
Never trust a politician.
Yeah, that's a truth relational statement meant to be taken as fact if you've ever taken logic. It wasn't, I will vote for that person most of the time. It was, I will vote for that person. So I thought I had a pretty good chance with Al doing that. Plus, of course, in a private conversation at the end of 2014, Al encouraged me to run against Shelley O'Quinn. So, you know, you can take his word or mine on that. At any rate, I've got my 51st state shirt on tonight here, you see. The state of liberty, and take a look at it. If you want to get one, let me know, and I can definitely get you one too. So if you're not convinced now, I'm sure you'll be convinced after Matt speaks. This is a good idea.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything we need to know? And what I want you all to know is I said never trust a politician, but what I meant is never trust a politician, but do trust Matt Shea because he's a statesman. He is not a politician. And with that, open mic, you got to be faster than that, Gary. Gee.
I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. You might want to send me back to California.
Maybe Canada.
Canada, too. I'm going to compare Al French to Mitch McConnell. He basically is the first one I ever knew of the Republicans in Eastern Washington that arranged for the governor to appoint somebody against the will of the majority of the PCOs. That's very similar to what Mitch McConnell did in Alabama. So I'm calling, when you think of Al French, think of Mitch McConnell. Now the other assistant that worked against the majority of the PCOs is Stephanie Cates. And I am publicly stating here so it'll get around the county, she should resign. Yes. Thank you.
All right, so now we are going to, John put this in because I keep forgetting, but we do have jars that are around for contributions, and that helps us up, you know, pay for the email, pay for this. 2 chairs up front, 1 chair here. Come on, sit down. If you have chairs next to you, hold your hand up. So contributions are accepted and they're very appreciated. Okay, so tonight's presentation is the state of liberty. And this is the 7th time in Washington State's history that a bill to break the state in two has been introduced. But to me it seems far more appropriate now than ever before. Representatives Matt Shea, Bob McCaslin, and Dave Taylor are behind the current undertaking, and tonight Representative Shea will explain the process and the hurdles that need to be overcome to make this a reality. I can't say enough about Matt as a legislator. His slogan, less tax, less government, and more freedom, is what guides him in his legislative duties. He votes the right way and respects us in Eastern Washington, represents us in Eastern Washington very well, and he respects us. However, the GOP establishment types continually try to unseat him. It's the stupidest damn thing I've ever watched. Both the Spokane County GOPe and the Spokane Republican Club this year have been working to find someone to run against him. And it's because of actions like these that I recommend that you never contribute to the party, because you just don't know where your money's going to go. Instead, contribute directly to the candidates that you support. Matt Shea is one of those candidates that's earned our support. Welcome, Matt. We really appreciate you being here. You may. We'll get all adjusted here and ready to go. Would you like a glass of water or anything up
yes,
here?
please, actually.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me all right? So I wanted to talk about a couple things first. One of them is it's very interesting with North Korea that it was finally admitted this week. We've been talking about this for years, but it's finally admitted this week that the North Koreans attempted to hack into power companies in the United States of America. It finally was admitted, and that's been made national news. The second, so when I say that not as an I told you so, but This stuff is real. We just got to get rid of our normalcy bias and catch up to where reality is. And I want to talk about two things specifically. 10 years ago, I remember talking about the fact we needed to be prepared for any sort of disasters, anything like that as a community so we can love our neighbors. Just a basic thing. I didn't think it was that controversial at the time, but apparently it was. And then Puerto Rico happened. Because they said it would never be able to happen in the United States of America, that there would be a place in the United States of America that couldn't be reached for food or water or electricity or medical supplies or any of that stuff. And guess what happened? There are places now in Puerto Rico that are still not touched, still not reached. And I think that destroys the arguments of the mainstream media, but more importantly underscores why we need to be ready here. The other thing 10 years ago said is, hey, you know, hyperinflation is a definite possibility in the world somewhere. People retorted, Zimbabwe is just an anomaly. It will never happen in any other modern country in our times. Venezuela is not proud to announce that they are going to surpass 2,400% inflation in the next month. Try to wrap your mind around what that means, okay? So look, this stuff is real. We need to get rid of the normalcy bias and catch up to reality. Now tonight, I use a slide presentation. I don't normally do this, but on this I do because I want to show you primary source documents. I want to show you primary sources so that there isn't any arguments about this. I hear people say sometimes this can't be done. I always ask, how can it be done? How can it be done? And with that, I want to take a moment to honor a few folks in the audience tonight. And the first is Rich Loudenback. Are you still here, Rich? If you could stand up here real quick so everybody sees you. One of the guys behind Gem State Patriot, a journalist with integrity. Rich has done a lot to get out the message on the 51st state as well and has helped us, and I just really appreciate him and our friendship. Thank you, Rich. Spokane Valley City Council, could you stand up real quick if you're here? So we got Mayor Higgins. Is Mike Munch still here? Yeah. So because of the diligent work of these guys, Katerra is now moving into the industrial park in Spokane Valley, 150 jobs. Once again, for the 9th year in a row, they did not raise property taxes when they could have. All kinds of reasons why we need to keep Spokane Valley conservative. Somebody told me the other day, I thought it was pretty funny, that the answer to Spokane politics is Spokane Valley. I like that. So thank you guys, and thank you, Mayor Higgins, for everything you're doing out here. You don't get enough praise and enough thanks. There's too many people sharpshooting you, I think. All right, the future of liberty. Protecting our Christian heritage and culture. Why is this important? Why are we doing this? Where does it come from? Well, I think I start with who is government. We all know who is government, but that actually is kind of a trick question because government really is just a tool or a vehicle. There's always somebody behind government that's actually making it happen. And the problem that we have in Washington State right now is no matter how hard we try, we can kind of stem the tide a little bit, but it seems like we can never actually go in the positive direction, only in a few instances. And I want to mention a couple other issues as well. We need to be humble enough to work with each other to make the 51st state happen if we really believe that we want to be free. There have been all kinds of movements around the world that have been successful in doing this. Catalonia just voted for independence overwhelmingly. They just declared independence and then suspended it because they wanted to be reasonable to talk it out with the Spanish government. Give them one last chance instead of beating up the grandmothers at the polls. Why are we pursuing this? And I would submit to you it's because of one simple idea. That government closest to the people is best. And right now, how we are represented, our values, our culture, our traditions, our beliefs here in Eastern Washington is not well represented in Olympia. And so when that happens, the Founding Fathers said, you know what you do? You split. You come to a smaller, more representative of the people government. And that's the whole point behind what we're doing. Reasons for splitting, a few, because I had a few pages, so I picked a few. Thank you. Right now, I believe that there are people on the west side of the state in downtown Seattle that are emboldening our enemies. Not just the enemies of our country, but the enemies of our state. I believe that there are people that are failing to prepare for catastrophic events. They don't respect traditional morality. They don't respect life and liberty and property and the right of conscience, the right to bear arms. They believe in higher taxes and more government. And also, I think they believe in a system that actually promotes corruption. So anybody wants to know what the reasons are? Those are the reasons, and I want to get into them in detail here in a second. First of all, they embolden our enemies because they embolden the communists. And I want you to know that those flags that have that kind of crosshatch on it like this, that is a battle flag for those of you that have been in the military. They believe they're at war. And on November 4th, I think they've put out that they want to start the communist revolution in America. And oh, by the way, 100 years almost to the day of the Bolshevik revolution in Russia. November 7th, 1917. Understand the symbology here, okay? Well, some people say, Matt, use the word communist. You can't do that anymore. Yes, I can, because that's what they are. There is the German communist symbol in 1932. There is the Antifa symbol today. Do they look alike? Yes or no? Okay, pretty simple. Here are some of the local organizations, and you can't read a lot of them, but the one in the center, Peace Justice Action League, is kind of the heart of the beast here locally in Spokane. They're here in our backyard too. But why are they here in Spokane? Because they're being funded and organized over on the west side of the state. They're emboldening our enemies here. This is called the Taxonomy of Action. It's from a book called The Deep Green Resistance. It's very difficult to read because it's kind of smeared. Oh, that was better. Thank you. However you did that. Awesome. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see violence against human as one of their action plans and action steps. Okay? Again, why are we even allowing this in our state? Why are we even allowing it to exist and not be prosecuted? And I mean, number two, Soviet Islam. A lot of people don't understand the nexus between Islam and communism, but there's a great book called Disinformation from General Mihai Pachipa, the highest-ranking KGB general to defect to the United States of America. In that book, he writes many things, but one of them is startling. During the 1960s and 70s, under Andropov and Khrushchev, the KGB sent 4,000 KGB agents into the Middle East with the express purpose of creating, through the Middle East, a buffer against the United States of America. Do you think we're still fighting that war today? Here is a quote for those of you on the older generation who will recognize the name Carlos Sajakal. Only a coalition of Islamists and Marxists can destroy the United States. There's a quote also by General Pachipa, but I want to get to the next one because it's very, very important. This is a quote from his book. Before 1969 came to an end, Palestinian terrorists trained at the KGB's Balashika Special Operations School east of Moscow had hijacked their first Zionist El Al plane. What does that mean? Those guys, the hijackers, that whole tactic, they learned how to do it in KGB training camps. Also bring up the issue of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was one of the organizations infiltrated by the communists. They are in all these countries, including the United States. How do I know that? Because in Virginia, a guy named Ibrahim Obrasi was arrested with his wife filming the superstructure of a bridge. And Ibrahim Obrasi, when his home was raided, the FBI discovered a secret sub-basement with the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood. In that archive, they found something which has come to be known as the explanatory memorandum. It was literally a prosecutor's dream. Here are our organizations in the United States of America, and they listed them all. The other part of that explanatory memorandum was that they wanted to defeat the United States of America over a period of decades. And they would do it by gradually getting into the spheres of public life in America and continually corrupting them. I bring this up for this reason, because right now over on the west side of the state, they're promoting some of the organizations that were listed in that memorandum as being members of the Muslim Brotherhood. There was something called the Holy Land Foundation trial that came out of all of this, and in the Holy Land Foundation trial, as a matter of fact in law, a federal court judge found, and this is actually from the evidence that was introduced, found that these following individual entities who are or were members of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood included the North American Islamic Trust. Remember that name, because who owns the mosque in Spokane Valley, Washington? They do. So as a matter of fact in law, the Muslim Brotherhood owns the mosque in Spokane Valley, Washington. Done, and no argument from anybody. That is a fact. But there's another organization that was promoted in Seattle and continues to be promoted in Seattle that was also on this list in the Holy Land Foundation trial. Again, the judge found, as a matter of fact in law, the following individuals or entities were members of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood's Palestinian Committee, including the Council of American Islamic Relations. That right there, for me, is enough to split the state, okay? Right there. But there's more, as the infomercial goes. I believe they're also emboldening our enemies. And specifically, they're emboldening our enemies because they are not hardening the grid infrastructure when we have countries like North Korea that say, A, we're going to hack your power companies, B, we're going to EMP you, which the North Korean leadership actually said publicly. I've brought this up for 7 years now about hardening our grid infrastructure and been met with continual resistance. This article that's up there on the screen, it's actually, I think, up to 18 attacks now where fiber optic cables have been cut in the United States of America, and they have never figured out who has done it. Well, this shows you, this one, what the grid looked like before modernization and now with modernization. Now you can see why North Korea is going after the grid, right? And for those of you that don't know about the Metcalf sniper attack in California, there was an attempt to take down a substation which would have left Northern California without power for years because we don't have spare high voltage transformers on hand. They're made in Korea, South Korea. Give you a little bit of a different perspective. And it takes 6 to 18 months to get back here to the United States. Now, one thing Trump has done very well, Donald Trump has said we are going to put money toward creating a high voltage transformer stockpile. But here's what you don't know. With that Metcalf sniper attack, at the exact same time at EMP altitude, over Washington, D.C., flew a satellite by guess which country? At the exact same time the sniper attack happened. Which country? North Korea. Okay, we need to start taking this seriously. And here's a graphic just to show you. Washington goes down, its grid goes down. And by the way, you'll see most of the power generation is in eastern Washington. If the grid goes down, so does the grid for 11 other states, because that's who we supply power to. Okay? Had the opportunity this year to get briefed on the preparedness level of Washington State. Okay, and I want to highlight a few things. First, there are no strategic food stores in Washington State. Were there in Puerto Rico? No. How is that working out? Very poorly, because you have to ship it in, and that's not where the problem is. Getting it there is not the problem. It's distributing it once it's there, and that's the problem they're having right now. There are no strategic water stores and very limited strategic water filtration in Washington State. There are limited strategic medical supplies. And by the way, most hospitals in Washington operate at 95% capacity on any given day. Overwhelmed very easily. And also same for North Idaho too. We also, and I'll highlight a couple things, there is very, very limited EMP preparedness in Washington State right now. In fact, one story I had, they were electrifying the cranes, the port of Tacoma, and they were doing this because it was greener and cleaner and all that. And I just asked a very simple question: what happens if the power goes out? And there was a very awkward pause. That's just not going to happen. And I said, well, let's just say the power goes out. Well, we have generators for 48 to 72 hours. Well, can you unload the ships coming into port if the power is out? No. Can you load the ships if the power is out? No. And how much of Alaska is supplied through the Port of Tacoma? Does anybody know? Over 80%. Over 80%. So if Washington's port goes down, Alaska's in a big, hard way. Think about that. Talk about, and actually let me do one positive. There is one great thing that we do have, and that's we have excellent cybersecurity in Washington State. We really do. I've seen the facility, and the head of cybersecurity in Washington is very, very good. Let's talk about corruption. I believe that the system that is promoted on the west side of the state honestly promotes corruption. And I just want to give you a few things that have happened. 208 allegations of forgery, scholarship money used for parties, and that's from the Democrat Party. But you also have, I believe, mainstream Republicans on the west side of the state, and you have Republicans on the east side of the state. And the problem is that instead of going for what we say we believe, too often I've seen promotion of compromise that has put us in a very bad way statewide. You also have the war on Christian patriots. Constitutionalists are a greater threat than ISIS and all of this. Look, the system shouldn't promote that. The system should promote us being Americans. It shouldn't be about right or left. It should be about right and wrong. It should be about the fundamental principles that have brought us together. This is from the mainstream Republicans, and I do want to highlight this because what it says essentially is that if you're standing for truth, you're divisive, and we don't want that. So those of you that have taken formal logic, that means you don't want the truth. I do want the truth. Don't you? I want people that are going to do what they say they're going to do. Then you got this where you have resources funded partially by taxpayers being used to demonize us. National Public Radio comes out with a report that says right-wing extremists are a greater threat than ISIS. How stupid of a statement that is, but who funded the report that they used? It was a New America Foundation, so we can go look up who funds the New America Foundation. Is that a shock? So you have public resources using private reports to demonize those that believe in American values. And so that brings us to this. Aren't we already two completely different states? Aren't we morally different? Aren't we politically different? Aren't we different on the issues of life, property, liberty, self-defense, education? Aren't we economically different as well? And the answer is very simply yes. Politically different. Here's just, I'm going to go through a bunch of maps pretty fast, but this is the presidential election by county in Washington State. Does anybody know what's in Whitman County? A college. Okay? So, very clear, stark line there on our politics for president. But it also holds true for our politics for Congress. It also holds true for our politics for electing governors. Look at that's even more stark. Whitman County came along on that one. Interestingly as well, our politics for the state legislature, and you'll see that very tiny blue dot over in eastern Washington, and that's the 3rd district in downtown Spokane. All right? You'll see it holds true over to North Idaho as well. All right? We're also politically different in our courts. Now, here's the really interesting part about it. We don't elect typically the justices for the Washington State Supreme Court with our vote in eastern Washington. But it's those justices in the Supreme Court that did the Hurst decision and many other things, right? Well, if you take a look at this map, you'll see the 9th Circuit District Courts up at the top, okay? You'll notice the ones in red were the ones that were picked by a Republican president. The ones in blue were the ones that were picked by a Democrat president. Look at Eastern Washington, which is that short stack just to the right. Wow. That does not reflect the people of Eastern Washington. We're also morally different, and these are all vote maps from the Secretary of State's website. This is R71 concerning domestic partnerships. You can see there's a very stark divide in Washington State. You can see it with R74 concerning same-sex marriage. And again, Whitman County stands out. And I want to highlight something. What is the result of not promoting morality and not being a moral people? You have a dramatic increase in single-parent households, which is directly associated with virtually every problem that we have societal problem that we have statewide. That's probably one of the most impactful slides on here. We have a different view of life as well. You see, this is the picture of how much it costs for the brain or the heart or the upper limbs of a child sold on the open market. Why do I bring this up? Because the University of Washington is who has the freezer that keeps those parts to do medical research. I would say I don't agree with that. I don't want my taxpayer money going toward that. And by the way, I asked for a tour of this, and I hope I get a tour of this facility since taxpayer money is going toward it. But this lab should not exist in Washington State. I believe we're also different on the issue of liberty. On the left, appropriately, you see a statue of Vladimir Lenin in downtown Seattle. With, oh, by the way, red on his hand. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yep. And then on the right, you have the cross above Colville, Washington. Two completely different ideas. I think we're different on the idea of privacy in regards to liberty. This is from Seattle, Washington, the mesh network that they set up, literally a system to allow real-time investigation of almost every database and tracking of every person. Now, when this was uncovered, actually accidentally through a public records request, they accidentally let this out. When this was uncovered, they, whoa, we didn't mean to do this, and they pull back, right? Well, that was several years ago. They're actually going back toward it now. I say we have a different idea of what liberty means in Eastern Washington. Property rights. We have talked about the Hurst decision ad nauseum, but if you control water, you control people, and that's what this is all about, right? We also have a different view on property rights in regards to wolves. This is from the Conservation Northwest group. Again, most of these are funded and based out of downtown Seattle, but I picked this one because he says a couple things. Grizzly bears and people need wild space, and Conservation Northwest is key to assuring that legacy. Are we sharing the wild space with the grizzly bear in the same area? I don't know. But he also says down there at the bottom, for people, wolves, and all of Northwest wildlife, that's why we need wolves in Washington State. And that's great. What a great idea, except that all the wolves are in Eastern Washington, right? So they're not living with the policies that they're putting forward. Right. Yeah, allow people to defend their livestock. I think we're different on property rights when it comes to forest management. You have on the left a wildfire that happened when there was no clearing of the underbrush, and on the right a fire when there was clearing of the brush, and you could see the difference in the healthy forests. And by the way, on that point, 92 million tons of CO2 is released every year in Washington State. 24 million of that is from wildfires, and that was before this year. The greatest thing we could do is manage our forests, but the policies that are preventing our forests from being managed are coming from downtown Seattle. Obviously, we're different on self-defense as well. This is Bob Ferguson. Thank goodness we've been able to block that every time. Here's the vote. This is just on I-594. You'll see Whitman County, and I still, to this day, I do not understand Asotin County. Somebody was asleep or stayed home or something. I don't know what happened there, but Spokane and Whitman went the other way, but you can still see a very stark divide in the state of Washington. Lastly, I believe we're different on education. That graph up the center is education spending nationwide, and at the bottom are the test scores. That holds true for Washington State. We believe in freedom. We believe in education choice. We believe that there should be homeschooling, there should be private schooling, there should be education savings accounts, there should be tax credit scholarships, so people aren't paying twice to send their kids to a good school. That's different than their view over in Western Washington. We're economically different as well. This is the sales tax map. You'll see that the highest sales taxes are kind of that lighter green, and those are all in Western Washington. Same holds true for property taxes. You'll see that, I don't know why they picked these non-contrasting colors, but anyway, the kind of, I don't know, darker purple or whatever, again, is the higher property taxes centralized in Western Washington. We're also economically different on regulations. This was I-1433 concerning labor standards, and you can see the vote again at the Cascade Mountains. And by the way, what happens as a result of all these economic problems? You have inactive, and specifically with the minimum wage hike, you have inactive youth and inactive young people, 25, and then it continues to grow because they've been active for so long to 54. And that inactive male rate is something historians look at to determine whether there's going to be civil unrest in the country. Is there civil unrest right now? Yeah, and you can see because it's over 10%. So is it realistic to split the state? I would say it's already happening. And I want to bring up some maps that show we are already splitting in our choices, in the way that we run our governments. We're already doing it. So is this a new idea? No. 1860, you can see the map. They thought we belonged together anyway, right? So where in the United States is the most free? It's our area of the country. And again, if you split Washington and Oregon in half, this holds true. All these maps hold true. We're the most free according to the Cato Institute. Where in the United States is the most debt-free? And this is probably the starkest map on here. The dark green up there, again, our area of the country. If you split Washington and Oregon, this holds true. Where in the United States has the least amount of credit risk cities? Our area of the country. This was actually done by Zero Hedge. These are all the cities that potentially will go bankrupt. Next, and that's a lot of cities, by the way. Which part of the country has the least pension liabilities? Again, our area of the country. How about where in the United States are pensions most funded? Again, our area of the country. You can see up there in the Montana, Idaho, Wyoming area, but it also bleeds down a little bit into the Appalachian Mountains. How about where in the United States has the lowest income tax rates? The ones in gray have no state income tax, and then the lowest is kind of in the lighter, but our area of the country has that conglomeration. How about the lowest sales taxes? Again, our area of the country, the lowest sales taxes depicted by the light green and the gray, which are states that have no sales tax. How about in the United States, where is the lowest property taxes? Well, our area of the country, but then also over into the Appalachian Mountains. See, these types of things show our beliefs in action. That's why I'm going through this, because mentally and psychologically we have already separated. We just haven't made it formal yet. How about where's the lowest business taxes? The blue states are the top 10 business climate states in the country. I do not know why Oregon is on there exactly, but I put it up there. How about the lowest cost of living? Again, our area of the country, and then bleeding down into the Appalachian Mountains. Now, the next slide is my favorite slide, because us folks over here in Eastern Washington, quite often we get called a bunch of redneck hicks and ignorant sodbusters and whatever else, Sean. You know, you guys just need to get more educated over there in Eastern Washington. So this is beautiful. When I came across this map, I leapt for joy. They actually track intelligent literacy rates in the United States, okay? Intelligent literacy rates, people that read poetry, classics, novels, okay? Where is the most intelligently literate place in the United States of America? I love that. How about y'all come over and borrow some of our books over there in downtown Seattle? Y'all might learn something. And again, if you cut Washington in half, this holds true. They also say we have this kind of mindset over in this area of the country that we just don't like equality, and we're just trying to get one over on somebody, right? Except for the fact that we were the place that actually allowed women the right to vote ahead of everybody else. In fact, in some cases before we were states. So we have had the ideas. We don't need the media to tell us how we are. These are the facts. Another great slide. The least number of mosques in the United States of America, our area of the country. Least number of sanctuary cities in America, our area of the country. Now, you'll note that that little dot there is not Spokane Valley, even though the DOJ tried to claim that, or whoever put that list together. That's the city of Spokane. So Tim Benn's got his work cut out for him. Where in the United States has the least use of drones? Everything from police to management of wildlife, etc., our area of the country. What part about this slide do I like the most? The fact that nobody, even the communists, want to go to Nevada. But thank you to Indivisible for allowing us a map, but we have the least number of communist groups in the country as well. I put this slide up there to also show that there is a higher conglomeration of Indian gaming on the west side of the state than there is on the east side of the state. Now, there's also a thing that I like to do, and that is go and see what our enemies are saying about us. A guy named Isaac Panarov, who was a Izvestia agent, then became an author, put together this map of how he thought the United States would balkanize ideologically. And you could see that even according to them, they thought this area of the country was ideologically different, although he messed up the North Idaho part and eastern Washington. But that's what our enemies think about us, and I thought I'd put that up there as well. Also, back in 1992, a guy named David Aikman wrote a book called When the Almond Tree Blossoms, predicting about what the United States would look like in 20 years. Now, David Aikman was kind of prophetic in a couple ways, because it's a book nobody's ever heard of, but that Zbigniew Brzezinski endorsed. Yes. And in that book, he said a couple things. That the United States in 20 years, so 2012, would begin to polarize ideologically. And this was the map that he showed for that polarization. He also predicted that the first civil unrest, true civil unrest in the United States, would begin in a place called St. Louis, Missouri. He also predicted that our enemy today would not be Iraq. Remember, this is 1992. It would be Iran. He predicted the resurgence of the Russian Empire. Remember, in 1992, the wall had just fallen. And he predicted the surge of the Chinese Empire. I kind of look at that. I say, you know what? That guy kind of knew what he was talking about. And very interesting, down at the very bottom, you'll see he labeled that area the constitutionalist area of the United States, before the word was even used frequently in modern parlance. Pretty amazing. So that brings us to the 51st state. That's the map officially of what we've introduced. Now, and I'll get to the steps of introducing it. This is the ideological map. So here's Liberty State by county. There are 20 counties. Now, I will tell you that Skamania and a couple others are just like, please don't leave us. Do not leave us. You know, they've been really adamant about it. Okay? Some people have asked me this question, is this popular? Is this just a flash in the pan, whatever. Is this popular? Okay, so KXLY did an informal poll, and online, 8,000 some odd people weighed in, and when they did, over 73% supported Liberty State. So many people, suddenly the poll went down. We did another one after that, 1,600 people, 75% supported it, so 73 to 75% support, I think, is a significant majority of the people that support this idea. Then we had some people try to question it. Is it constitutional? You can't do that. Yes, you can. Article 4, Section 3, you can split a state with a simple majority vote of the legislature of the state and with the vote of Congress. That's it. I think right now we have the vote of Congress. I think the question is, do we have the vote at the state level? And people say, well, how are you going to get the other side to vote for us? Just like I would get us to vote for it. You guys think that we're siphoning off all this money from your social programs, and we're getting in the way of all your minimum wage hikes and regulations and everything? We are so sorry. We'll get out of the way. We want you to be better represented as well as socialists. It's true. It would work. Some people ask me, is it a new idea? No, it's been done many times. Then you have the modern independence movements like Catalan and Brexit, which have been very successful. So this is something that people throughout the ages, when they get to a point where they don't feel they're being represented and their views and values and cultures and traditions are being protected, they're going to do it. And I think it's time for us. Then you have some folks that say, you'll be unable to function, you welfare freeloaders in eastern Washington. And they trot this map out, which says that Okanagan, for example, for every dollar it raises in taxes, gets $1.84 back. And so you welfare freeloaders will starve in the streets, etc., etc., etc. And I'm going to blow this out of the water here in a second. And by the way, I do not recommend that you read The Stranger, okay? Please don't do that, all right? It's a vile, vile publication, but I pulled it off for this illustration. But when they say that we're a bunch of welfare freeloaders, I came up with this argument, and no one has been able to rebut it since. I said, you know something? I'm sorry. We're sorry for being such a burden over here in eastern Washington. We're sorry for causing you so many problems. Will you just let us go then? We don't want to be a burden anymore. And then you watch the countenance totally change, right? Because that's not what they expect. But it's true. If we're so bad and we're so backward and we're such a bunch of welfare freeloaders, then cut us loose. Then you had some people say we wouldn't raise enough tax money. Now when I put this slide up, there's a couple caveats on here, okay? Eastern Washington is about the exact population of Idaho. We raise about $3 billion in gross operating taxes compared to Idaho's $4 billion. Now, understand something. Idaho has an income tax where we don't, okay? So this is kind of a little bit of comparing apples to oranges, but not really. It's what they use to fund their operating budget, okay? Transportation taxes were similar. We have a higher because we have a higher gas tax, right? Federal aid, you'll see that $3 billion is rounded, and that's because we have not been able to get the exact numbers back, but we believe it's very close. The whole point behind this slide is we raise almost as much in taxes as the entire state of Idaho. I think we would do just fine on our own. I think we would do just fine on our own. Okay? Now, oh, by the way, too, you can see the other states we're about the same size as, West Virginia, Hawaii, New Hampshire, and Maine. To give you an idea, those are very liberal states. And I would just add, too, we're not going to have the same size and scope of government they are, so we're not going to need as much money for it, right? Amen? Amen. Okay. Then we had some people say, you're not going to have any state parks. The only problem is almost all the state parks are in eastern Washington, right? So that was kind of dumb. I threw that up there for a particular person. So, all right. You have Crosscut do an article busting the myth of two Washingtons. In fact, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in his first remarks this session said, in response to this bill, we reject the idea that there are two separate cultures and two separate value systems and two separate heritage. We reject the idea, right? So Crosscut does this article and proceeds to say that this is an idea that's coded dog whistling and born of ignorance, okay? And then call us a bunch of hicks, right? Okay, so here's a question I asked this lady, and I called her out on it. I said, why do you have to call us a bunch of ignorant hicks? Well, I didn't say that, and I took a little snapshot of it and sent it back. Why do you got to do that? If we really share the same values, why do you have to call us names? No answer, right? You had the Columbian, which was quoting the Socialist Review, saying, there's a proposal to split Washington in two, and it continues to be folly. And the Spokesman Review stands on its righteous high horse, except it forgets that people have kept some of the magazines from 1984 where they did a 96-page insert promoting the 51st state. And we have copies of that, and they absolutely hate that I've got copies of it. Okay, so I guess it changes. Then you have the two-state solution from the stranger again. But I love this because it's honest. It just says, why not cut the rubes loose? Great. Call me whatever you want to. Keep us free, right? All right. 8 steps to freedom. Okay? The first thing is we have to believe number 1. We just have to believe that. Number 2, we need to create a groundswell and claim ground for liberty. Now, we are already doing that. We have over 3,000 people on the Join the 51st State page. We also have Liberty State page, which is kind of where we do our announcements and everything. We have officially got flags now and stickers that you can put on your car or your business with the Liberty flag on it. They are in the back on the back table. Please grab as many as you want and spread them as far and wide as you possibly can. And here's why. It doesn't matter, again, remember I showed you all those maps, right? It doesn't matter necessarily that it's formal. Everywhere we plant that flag in the ground, put that sticker on, we have just claimed that ground for liberty. We have just claimed that ground for liberty. All right, after that we need, and we have these prepared, and we're revising a couple, but we think that the next step is to have counties adopt resolutions in favor of the 51st state, okay? After that, we need to do a House Joint Memorial to Congress requesting a vote. That has already been done, but it has not been passed yet, okay? It's already been introduced. The next step is we need to introduce both a House bill and an initiative to the legislature to split the state and lay out the transition. How would transition work? Well, transition would work very simply. You just establish the committees that allow for transition, from courts to taxes to debt to all of those things, and just have it phased in over a period of years. Very simple, but there needs to be a bill to do that. Lastly, if we can't get a hearing, if we can't get an initiative to the legislature, then I say we do what a lot of other places have done in the world, and that is we have a privately funded, but public vote on the issue in Eastern Washington. I say that's the last step. So I want you to imagine, if you will, and by the way, let me back up. We have started drafting a proposed constitution going back to some original principles, okay? And I want to highlight a couple of those original principles that were in the first Washington State Constitution, 1878, okay? But I want you to imagine a place where we actually have lower taxes. This is the current tax breakout in Washington right now. You'll see 9% is going to the budget from property taxes. Do you think we could find 9% efficiency in government? Imagine a state without a property tax, something called a lloydial title. And a lot of people don't know it was actually in the original Washington State Constitution, a lloydial title. Okay? Also in Washington State Constitution, we have something called the Blaine Amendments. It was originally an anti-Catholic set of amendments to prevent any taxpayer money going to fund Catholic parochial schools, okay? Here's where we are at today because of the Blaine Amendments. You will see K-12 education is about 23.5%. You'll see higher education, and you'll see, I just want to highlight Medicaid, okay? So over half, we're going to have over half the budget with K-12 education coming up. It's going to be up 52% with the new budget. Now, imagine a state where we don't have a Blaine Amendment, and if somebody wants to have pre-tax dollars go to an education savings account, or maybe have a tax credit scholarship so they can have homeschooling for their kids, or their kids can go to a private school, and we actually have true competition in education, could you imagine what that would do? For the whole country, what would it do? Then I want you to imagine a state with less regulations. You'll see that Washington State right now is number 50 in minimum wage regulations, and this was before the minimum wage hike. You'll also see we're 48th in unemployment insurance, 50th in right to work, and 50 is the bad, okay? 44th in land use regulations, 44th in state energy regulations, and 50th in telecommunication regulations. We got nowhere else to go but up. Really? I mean, a long way up. And I want to share a story with you as I get to a close here. There was a lady been lobbying in Olympia for 30 years, came to my office. Matt, I got a story to tell you. I was laughing at you the other night. I was out to dinner with a group of multimillionaire businessmen. I was laughing at you. I said, really? About what? Well, about the 51st state. And then I realized I was the only one at the table that was laughing. And I asked him, apparently I made a mistake. What do you guys think about the 51st state? It's not funny. It's not funny. If there was a new state, we would move all of our businesses as soon as we could. So understand what would happen if you create a place of freedom and liberty. You're going to attract businesses. Remember that power generation map and all the empty land we've got near Moses Lake and everywhere else? You're going to attract businesses to Washington State and jobs and people. That's what happens when you set aside a place of freedom and liberty. People will come to it. Then there were some people that said, Matt, it would be the poorest state in the union. And I said, great, let us wallow in the poverty of being first in production in apples, Concord, grapes, red raspberries, pears, sweet cherries, hops, second in potatoes, wine, onions, edible peas, apricots, third in hay production, fourth in wheat production. Please, let us wallow in all that poverty. And this is with all the regulations on it. Think about that. This shows you, and this is just one sector of the economy, manufacturing with cheap power near Moses Lake would be dramatic. In fact, that's why some of the telecommunications companies, that's why some of the computer companies want to put their data storage there. I mean, we have so much opportunity. Just imagine it for a second of what freedom would really look like if we just got government out of the way. Here's the flag, and this is the stickers that are on the back table. This was voted on by over 1,000 people. I want to explain it very quickly. It was done over a 6-month period. But the motto, liberty founded in truth. Our hope is not in man, our hope is in Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is the truth. You'll see the nod to our agriculture with the laurels at the bottom left and right. You'll see the stars at the top, resiliency, opportunity, and rule of law. You'll see the osprey in the middle, which is a symbol of freedom and endemic to our area. You'll see the broken sword, which is a nod to all the people that have sacrificed to make the state of liberty happen over 150 years. You'll see also, my favorite part, the broken shackles of tyranny from downtown Seattle. Here's a proposed state seal, and if you get a chance, please go to patriotpolls.org and vote on the state seal. This is the one that was leading, okay? So we haven't finished the vote on the state seal yet. But patriotpolls.org. This was actually created by the Socialist Review, and I thought that was a great job. What a great start to a license plate. All right, I want to end with a couple things. First of all, we need to keep focused on the real enemy. There are people in our country right now that hate America and want to watch it be destroyed. We have to understand that that exists, okay? They're not ignorant of it. They don't need to be educated more. They are intentionally and with malice aforethought moving forward to destroy this country. So we got to keep focused on who the real enemy is. It's not in this room. Okay? It just isn't. Second, we need to do what we say we believe. That means we need to know what we believe. Have we read our own state constitution? Have we read the original 1878 state constitution? Because if we're going to draft the constitution together, we better know what we want in it, right? And it better be freedom. The other part, too, is we need to pray through all this because I believe the Lord needs to guide us in the next great leap of freedom and liberty in the world. We have an opportunity in this area, this little area of the world, to set something up that people in other countries can copy and follow for generations and generations and generations. Are we going to take that seriously? The people in this room can make that difference. We all together can change the world. I also believe that 4 and 5 down there at the bottom, that'll take care of itself if we're doing the right thing. We need to be prepared to love our neighbor here, now. Could you imagine if you had an extra $1,000 a month in your pocket instead of it going to taxes, what you could do? I mean, my goodness. The churches could take back their role of actually helping the folks in the community instead of relying on some government agency to do it. Imagine what could happen. Yeah. How do we keep the enemy out? You are eternal vigilance. That is the only way. You are gonna have people come to the new state and try to bring their ideas with them and superimpose it. That means it's the job and the duty of all of us to turn them back toward what's right. And through our own state constitution to put in enough checks and balances to prevent any schemes of evil and ambitious men. Last but not least, Wolverine leadership. I always end presentations on that. Those of you that have heard it, you're going to hear it again because I love it. Wolverines teach us a lot. There have been a lot of studies done about Wolverines. And one of the things they learn about Wolverines is they always go 3 miles an hour. Uphill, downhill, mud, sleet, rain, 3 miles an hour. Steady perseverance regardless of what you are facing. In fact, they tracked one Wolverine going up 4,500 vertical feet at 3 miles an hour. That's a tired Wolverine when he got to the top, but steady perseverance. Second thing Wolverines teach us is that the Wolverine dad actually spends the exact same amount of time with each one of the Wolverine pups. Have we chosen, if we do not have young people in our life, have we gone out and chosen young people to mentor? Look, you got great... Are we intentionally choosing them and spending the same amount of time? Next thing Wolverines teach us is self-reliance. In the wintertime, when there are avalanches, they'll cover deer and moose carcasses. Wolverines will dig down 12 feet, and they will eat everything, including the bones. In fact, in some languages, they're called bone crushers. But what does that teach us? It teaches us, are we willing to do what it takes to survive? Are we self-reliant? Because that Wolverine also gets that food 12 feet down for its pups too. And the last thing Wolverines teach us, they're very playful animals. There's videos of them. People throw them balls and they play fetch and stuff. They're really cool animals that way. and they make this kind of weird squeaking sound. You're like, that doesn't sound like a Wolverine should, at least what I envision a Wolverine should. But if you attack a Wolverine's family, it will rip your face off. Now listen, how many times have we let government bureaucrats from the other side of the state attack our families and we haven't done anything? That should encourage all of us to get more involved. As the Irish proverb says, in the battle between the stream and the rock, the stream always wins, not through strength, but through perseverance, and that is what it's going to take to make the 51st state happen. Thank you very much, and I could take a couple of questions, but I really appreciate y'all being here tonight, and I really pray that this can be used to help keep America free. Let's start over here in this corner. Gary? Leave that up to the folks. It won't be Mitch McConnell. We can say that. All right, go ahead. You know, a lot of people have asked what would the capital be. You know, before Washington was really kind of deciding Olympia to be the capital, they were thinking Moses Lake or Ellensburg, and what a different state we would be if the capital had been on this side, huh? But there was infighting that happened, and it ended up over in Olympia. So it's kind of a lesson to us. Yeah. Go ahead.
There's a process in government for protecting individuals working for government. Get rid of government unions, period. Can we do that? And number two, it's a real quick one. What about school choice, which promotes competition?
We can do whatever freedom things we want to in a state constitution, and I would just simply say this, that you mean restore freedom, true freedom of association. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. J.C.
Whoops.
Matt, for the
Up to your
for
mouth.
the believers in the group, let's not forget that our struggle is not against flesh and blood. This is Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the power of the darkened world, and against spiritual forces of the heavenly realm. You know, if we remember that, we also remember when the ark was taken from Israel by the Philistines, they sent it back with golden hemorrhoids. So we may want to pray for the legislator that are in Western Washington for hemorrhoids.
I don't know how to respond to that exactly, but I will tell you this, though. That's why I say at the beginning of the very beginning of the presentation, talk about the spiritual manifestations in the physical realm of what's happening, because it's important to keep that in mind in everything we do. There is a very strong ideological battle. I've talked to people that have driven across the Cascade Mountains to the other side and then come back, and they can feel the weight lift off as they come into Eastern Washington. They can feel the oppression come on as they go. Yeah. Yes. I'm coming back up top. Yeah.
Couldn't we solve any budget problems with a speed trap in Ellensburg?
Or how about a toll road as it comes down the pass? Sorry.
Matt, I just have a comment to make on EMPs. I called the CEO of Inland Power last year, and he wasn't even aware of EMPs. I asked him what was being done to harden the system, and he said he would get back to me, which after he studied it, he finally got back to me and said Inland Power had no plans whatsoever to harden the system.
And I've heard that from several other sources as well, and across the state, it's just not being taken seriously, when it should be. I mean, there was the Project K experiments by the Russians in Kazakhstan, very clear what the damage of an EMP can be, and that was in the 60s and 70s. Tim.
So when Western Washington says that we're just sucking off of the welfare over here, we need to remind the state legislature about all the programs that relocates the mentally ill to Eastern Washington into Spokane, the sex offenders, and also the huge drug trade and human trafficking trade. So when you separate the state, make sure all those people get shipped over first.
And no more potholes. No more potholes.
I'd like to know us. What can we do? What are the next steps? How is this going to be publicized? What are the steps from here on to, are we looking on to November 2018? What are we preparing for? What is the process?
So if you're asking for a specific timeline, right now we're going to get the Liberty State, and you can see it up there, libertystate.org. We're going to get that online. We're looking for people that can be county captains at this point to help organize at the county level. So if you're interested in helping to do that, please get a hold of me after this, or when that website gets up and officially running, you can get it through there. We have the 2 Facebook pages up right now. What we're looking at doing is introducing the actual split bill with the transition piece in it this next legislative session. And if that doesn't work, then they won't give it a hearing, introducing the initiative to the legislature for the following year. And in the interim between that, getting the resolutions from the county commissioners passed and signed. Yes. Well, and that's what I'm saying. If you want to get involved, you want to become a county captain or become part of those county organizations, contact me, or you can go on to libertystate.org website. As soon as we get it finalized, you can go to Join the 51st State Movement page as well. And right now we're in the organization phase. Then we're going to, as soon as that site is up, we're going to get those people that have volunteered, get them the stickers and flags and everything we can, and get that dispersed as much as possible, and then start again on a tour. I've already been to 7 cities on it.
Got one right here.
Oh, so does that answer your question directly? Yeah. And we've already done 7. I've already done personally 7 cities in the last month and a half on this. So we're going to go back around as well. But that local organization is what's going to be needed to help. Yep. Yes.
Matt, how would that affect the Hurst decision?
There wouldn't be a Hurst decision. There wouldn't be one.
Are there any other questions? Well, let's say thank you to Matt Shea.
God bless.
And join us at Trezzy Farm tomorrow night and for the Freedom Fundraiser, and you'll hear more from Matt, because I've got to say he is a shining star in our legislature.